Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for your attendance in large numbers. That's great, and it's not surprising. On behalf of Swiss Indian Chamber of Commerce, Swiss Business Hub India, with its head Pauline Müller, and of course Wipro, our esteemed member in Switzerland and in India, we would like to welcome you to this webinar. We will talk about India's GCC advantage as a strategic gateway for Swiss enterprises. It's a very opportune moment for two reasons. One, to start with on the topic, some of you may have seen the Times of India just yesterday had a big feature on India emerging as a GCC powerhouse, not least again, surprise, surprise, with latest US developments around the H-1B visa. But just generally, India is and is going to be a GCC powerhouse, according to Times of India, poised to become a 100 billion juggernaut by 2030. We would like to take the opportunity, and that's the second reason, we are just 1 week, precisely 1 week ahead of the entry into force of the TEPA, the Free Trade Agreement, or it's more than Free Trade Agreement, Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement between EFTA, with Switzerland in the lead, accounting for about 80% of trade, Switzerland a bit between EFTA and India. It's going to be the first agreement of this kind with Europe. As you may know, UK signed one, UK and India signed one recently, but that now also has to go through the process of ratification and closing the deal. And probably more importantly, there is also one still expected. It may be accelerated this year still with the European Union, which would then be certainly a competition for EFTA. But as of 1st of October, EFTA Switzerland has a competitive advantage over the rest of Europe. So the topic is very much embedded in the overall topic of TEPA and of an expected increase of trade relations, business relations, and investments between Switzerland and India. It is a comprehensive agreement, primarily, and that is what we will see immediately, doing away or at least reducing the first step up to abolishing for a large number of products and product lines in many sectors, tariffs. So free trade agreement is obviously always in a first instance about tariffs concerning companies that export goods into India here. And this is very good news for Switzerland, in particular in the current global situation where tariff barriers are put up rather than taken down. But India, fortunately for us all, has sent a signal to the world. We are opening our market, the largest country, the largest market in the world, up to those, and in particular now to Switzerland, that want to come to India, and India is welcoming Switzerland and Swiss companies and investors. So we will see hopefully a boost in trade and investments coming out of Switzerland, and vice versa. We see also Indian companies more having an interest in Switzerland and generally in Europe. Apart from trade, we have, as I mentioned, investments. That's a novelty, an investment chapter, the 100 billion investments within 15 years, 15 plus 5, and the creation of 1 million jobs. We are confident we are going to make it. There will certainly now be an increased interest and focus on initial investments in the first few years to see this is really working. But again, from a Swiss perspective, we very much welcome right now countries opening up and countries with which we can have free trade agreements. Lastly, and that goes very much to the topic as well, it's about innovation in many ways and in many senses. Switzerland put the tagline innovation really across and on top of TEPA, where India's interests and needs meet with what Switzerland can contribute to India's amazing growth story, growth ambition, culminating in 2047, 100 years of its independence, in becoming, by international standards, a fully developed country. So what does TEPA now mean for Swiss businesses? I hinted at the immediate kind of beneficiaries of, in terms of which companies will benefit immediately, that's certainly what we call MEM, so it's machinery, mechanical manufacturing companies. So again, matching very much the interest ultimately of companies investing and making in India, the Make in India program and policy in India. Many Swiss companies, about 2/3 already that are present in India, do that. They produce for India, and many also, and that's of course the ultimate goal from an Indian perspective, also for certainly the rest of the continent, namely Asia. So this is the story we Swiss companies already contribute to, and will contribute to even more so. We have, of course, the watch industry. We have, and that's also important, again, matching India's request, infrastructure development. We have large players already existing, airports. You may know Zurich Airport, building the Noida International Airport. We have railway, in the railway sector, a lot of companies that could contribute to the investment needs of Indian railways. This is already happening to some extent and starts to happen. We have energy transition also in India, as anywhere else in the world, where again Swiss companies can contribute in specific sectors. And last but not least, yes, we also do foresee in innovation-prone sectors like pharma and chemicals. The agreement provides for a good result for both India, also with a clear innovation strategy and trajectory, and of course Switzerland with those many companies, including or namely, but not only in the pharma sector, that can at some point and will also contribute to the growth and success story of India, but of course also of benefit for those companies here in Switzerland. And over to Florin.
Phil, thanks a lot. And also from my side, Florin, head of the Swiss Business Hub India. I'm based in Mumbai. Welcome. And I know that we don't have much time in this webinar, and it's all about GCCs. And we hand over very shortly, but a couple of words. What does it mean, TEPA, for Swiss companies in India? And primarily it means what you see here, the red carpet. It means that the Indian authorities, they grant the EFTA states, and when I say the EFTA states, the companies from the EFTA states a red carpet access to India. And this means like access to authorities, also challenge issue solving. This is what the Indian government grants, and this is what we from Official Switzerland, from Swiss Business Hub India, together with all our partners, can support you in. So having said that, the stage for you guys, for you companies to make business in India is set. And just a couple of principles what you have to take care of primarily when you come, and then we can talk about very concretely the GCCs. Doing business in India means very much building strong relationships, and it's all people's business in India. It's having relationships. It's having to have your network. We show you here in this webinar that is organized together with Wipro and SICC that we have this network for you. And before we hand over to Wipro to talk about GCCs, maybe Phil, you want to say a very short word on the rules and regulations that matter?
So, I mean, to end our introduction, the brief introduction kind of on TEPA and what it means, we talked a lot about the benefits and the opportunities, and I think we all, again, in times like these, should focus on those. Needless to say, and we know that also from Swiss companies, in particular small, medium-sized companies, for many it's a new venture. We are there, the Chamber, the Business Hub, to help them because, of course, there is the agreement. A lot is in the agreement. There's a lot of facilitation provided in the agreement. But we also all know, and India knows, there are still also hurdles in India on the ground, which is why it is so important, as Florin said, how to do it right. And we have many companies who've done it, large, small, medium-sized, successfully, and they will also have the role of champions or of role models for those yet to come. But what is important also for all of you, we use and we have TEPA also for purposes of being in a constant dialogue, which we are with the Indian government, on undoing or facilitating on the ground issues, technical barriers that still prevail, certain impediments that can indeed run counter what TEPA provides. And that's again where, and with that, I would love to hand over to our hosts. Thanks again for doing this for us. Everything you wanted to know about GCCs, I have the pleasure to hand over to Sandeep Dhar and Sitish Mittal. Over to you.
I'm just saying thanks, Florin and Philip, for organizing this. Really appreciate SICC and Swiss Business Hub India taking this initiative. And big thanks to our attendees as well for making time out, to join and listen into this webinar. My name is Sid. I'm based out of Zurich. I work for Wipro as a global account executive. My day job is to work with various Swiss organizations to solve the problems which are in the IT services and business operations domain, which is the business that Wipro is in. Personally, I have been associated with various GCCs in my career, especially with the Swiss organization. So as a subject, it's close to my heart. But we have Sandeep, who has been a veteran GCC leader in this space. So without further ado, let me invite him to the panel. Sandeep, glad to have you here. You have an illustrious career in the GCC space in India. Would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Sid, and pleasure to be here amongst all of you. I run the GCC practice for Wipro, and this is a subject area that I've been close to for the last 3 decades. It was in the mid-90s that I was involved in the setup of my first GCC, which was with Citibank in India. And subsequently, I worked in helping set up the GCC for ABN AMRO Bank, the Dutch bank in India, and then I set up GCCs outside of India in places like Malaysia and Australia. But that time I was more of a doer, and later in my career I got to run some large GCCs. So I ran the Tesco GCC for many years, which probably is one of the first GCCs in India, which showed the world that GCC is not just about having cheap labor. It's about building compelling capabilities in India. And subsequently, I also worked for Goldman Sachs running the consumer banking part of their GCC. So apart from that, I've had a few stints on the service provider side as well. So I understand both flavors. I have been a buyer and a seller at different points of time. So pleasure to be here and happy to share some of my experiences in this space.
Thank you, Sandeep. Let's just dive right in and begin with the basics. So see, GCCs, as you said, have been there in the ecosystem for many decades now. But somehow last 2 to 3 years, we hear this term a lot, and I believe the nomenclatures have evolved over the years. So why don't we start with the basic question of what is a GCC? What value does it add to an organization? And why are we hearing more and more about it in last 2 years?
Great way to start, Sid. It's an area which has been evolving. So the first thing that we need to understand is, what's happened over the last 3 decades. So I think, the first GCCs were set up by those organizations which were already doing business in India. So whether it was a General Electric or a Citibank, these are organizations which had been doing business in India for many decades. And when they struggled to, scale up capacity in their home markets, they said, hey, there is a lot of supply of talent available in India. We have a good brand name in India, so why don't we go out and hire people in India? So that's what happened. And once they were successful, then organizations which had not done business in India, they also started venturing out. Okay. So the fear of the unknown started getting converted into a fear of missing out. So they said, hey, just because we don't do business in India doesn't mean that we can't set up a center there. And the result was organizations like Target came to India, and non-American organizations like British Telecom and Tesco and ABN AMRO Bank and many other such organizations came to India. So that happened. But still now what was happening is it was only the large organizations which had a huge amount of scale that were setting up centers in India. So now it went to a stage where some of the medium-sized enterprises said that, hey, just because we are smaller doesn't mean that we can't set up a center. So they started venturing into this space. Okay, so a lot of momentum started gathering, and it was the flywheel effect, which in the last 2-3 years now you see that companies from across the globe are setting up GCCs. They are setting up GCCs in other countries, but the lion's share of that comes into India for a variety of reasons. And then organizations also started moving away from, started experimenting with the kind of work that could be done in a GCC. So initially it was only back office operations, call center work. Then, technology work started taking place in India, again, started with more of the simpler work. And then soon products and entire platforms started getting developed in India. On the manufacturing side, people started setting up R&D centers here. There's this Swiss organization, I hope I pronounce it right, Givaudan, which has set up a center in Mumbai where they experiment with sensory sciences and flavor sciences. So, innovative, use cases started coming up in India, and that's where the momentum has come from. So that's the first part of the question, which is, why are we hearing of this so often? So the second question was what it really is, and what it really is in very simple terms, another office that an organization set up. So multinationals have been setting up offices in multiple geographies for a very long time. This is nothing but another office that you set up and you build up capability and extend your company's culture and purpose and mission into this organization. And the third part was, what does it do for an enterprise? So simply put, I call them the 3 C's of a GCC. So the acronym has only 2 C's, but the purpose it serves, I translate it into 3 C's, and that's capacity, capability, and change. So capacity is, building out large teams, which sometimes are hard to do in the home markets at a reasonably good cost. And second is the capability. So if you want to build a new capability in product engineering or cybersecurity or R&D or artificial intelligence, then you build out that capability in India. And this is where now you are not moving jobs from one country to the other, but you are creating new jobs, right? So it becomes less controversial, and the nature of the work is such that it creates a larger business impact. And the third C is change. So where the GCC becomes an agent of change in the enterprise. So the GCCs have a unique position. They are not so close to the headquarters that the inertia of a legacy organization prevents them from innovating, and yet they are not so far away that they get distance from the business. So they are far enough to be able to see areas of opportunity and close enough to solve them. So that's the change component. So capacity, capability, and change, those broadly are the 3 ways in which a GCC provides value for an enterprise.
Thanks, Sandeep. Very well articulated. Before we go ahead, maybe just a quick call out to the attendees. If you have any questions, please feel free to post your questions. And our organizers, we will make sure that we answer those questions after this webinar to you directly via your email. So, continuing with the flow. So, Sandeep, I mean, as you mentioned, GCCs are not just an Indian phenomenon. GCCs have existed globally in many countries. Here in Europe, in eastern side of the Europe, southern part of Spain is doing a lot of good work. We see GCCs evolving in Mexico and, Philippines, many other countries around the world. So what's the advantage that India provides, and how can it coexist with all the other global GCCs around the world?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. There are other countries where you can set up a GCC as well. And in many of these countries, there is a specific area of specialization. So if you look at the European countries, they are invaluable when it comes to providing language-based skills. So in India, if you want to scale up, work which requires capabilities in French or Spanish or German, those skills are not available or not available in large numbers, right? Similarly, when it comes to English call center work, Philippines has emerged as a big powerhouse over there, right? But when it comes to anything to do with engineering and technology, I believe there is no other country which provides the scale that India provides, and that too with English-speaking talent, which is kind of increasingly becoming the global business language, so to say, right? And there are other countries where I've tried to set up centers, and I've done that in multiple countries around the globe in multiple continents. You can create small teams and small capability, but when it comes to doing that at scale, the Indian education system, the rate at which it is producing qualified graduates and accountants and supply chain specialists and R&D specialists, that is comparable only with China. But in China, it's not with the English language capability, which makes so English language makes the scale accessible. And with the Swiss companies, I always believe that it's an ideal combination. It is the marriage of Swiss precision and Indian scale, which creates a very formidable fusion of capabilities.
Thanks, Sandeep. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, as we know, there are a lot of GCCs, they already exist in India who are looking to expand as we speak. And there are a lot of new organizations, both large corporates and also the mid-tier or the mid-sized organization who are looking to start GCCs for the first time in India. And we are in the middle of these conversations. We talk to these organizations on a regular basis. There are always, few elements which become really important. For example, what should be the vision for the GCCs? Why should they do it? What are the operating models? What's the business case for doing this? So, in your experience, what are some of the top principles or the top tenets which an organization should keep in mind when they consider either expanding or starting a GCC in India?
So, in my mind, too many people make the mistake of thinking of it as a project. Oh, we don't have an engineering team in India. Let's set up an engineering team in India. Okay. Now, if you go with that kind of a narrow focus, the benefits also that you'll get out of it will be small and not material, right? So I think the best way to look at it is, how you look at any kind of an initiative in an organization. You start with the business that you are in and what your business priorities are. And then you start going backwards from there and saying that, hey, if these are my top 5 business objectives and priorities over the next 5 years, then what are the capabilities I need for it? And then you say that, okay, if these are the capabilities I need, what is the fastest and most cost efficient manner of building those capabilities? And that should then translate to, should I go with a conventional outsourcing model, or should I set up my own GCC, or a combination thereof? And if it's a combination, then which operating model is best aligned with either of those objectives, right? So you start with and that's what I do. So many times I find organizations ask me, hey, what can you do for us in GCCs? What are your capabilities? And I tell them that, hey, it's not about my capabilities. It's about us first trying to understand what are your business imperatives. Okay. And let's sit down and understand those and then come up with a plan on how do we address that. So if you start with that kind of an executive intent, and then you build strong governance around it to make sure there is no gap between executive intent and execution, that's where you start getting value out of it. So if you do it without executive intent, or if you do it with weak governance, your objectives are not clear, you may still get some value out of it, but it will be a small percentage of the true value that you can leverage out of this kind of a center.
That's right. Would you like to throw some more light on the cultural part of it, Sandeep? Because I think in my experience, I've seen, especially when the organizations, move their presence from one country to another, this element of cultural integration between the two countries or between the two, backgrounds becomes really important. What has been your experience in that space?
So I have a contrarian view on it. I think this too much is made out of cultural differences. I think there are more similarities between human beings across the world than dissimilarities. Okay. So the fundamentals stay the same. If you treat people with respect, they'll respect you back. If you listen to people and you respect their point of view, they will listen to you and respect your point of view. If you approach another human being with affection, you will get affection back. Okay. So my belief is that, we have to first go down to the, common denominator, and the common denominator is that, all of us want to kind of be respected, respect others, be happy and stuff like that, right? And then, you can take into account some differences, but then the differences become less of an impediment, right? So in my view, more than the culture, where the effort has to go is in alignment with the purpose of the organization, the mission of the parent organization. I think that alignment is very important, right? So if an organization like Apple is known for innovation, or if an organization like uh, you know UBS is known for trust, okay, you cannot create a GCC in India which has some different purpose. So an Apple GCC can't be focused on just reducing cost without worrying about the experience. Yeah, the UBS GCC can't be focused on taking risks with innovation to an extent where you do things which will damage the reputation or the trust that customers have in UBS, right? So alignment with the organizational purpose, the organization's ethos, I think is more important than cultural differences between countries.
Oh, that's very well put, Sandeep. Now, obviously, we are talking in the context of Switzerland. So, flipping the conversation a bit more, in that sense, how do you see Swiss organizations coming to India? Are there any different challenges or additional challenges that a Swiss company has to address, when they think of starting or expanding in India?
The only kind of challenge which comes to my mind, which is different versus, let's say, an American organization or a British organization thinking of it, is the language consideration. So work which is dependent upon language. So if there is work which involves interface and communication with consumers, okay, that kind of work is difficult to do out of India. Okay, so the work has to be language agnostic. And most work we find in engineering and tech, either being language agnostic, or it can be made language agnostic through the use of AI. So for example, if there is a tech support center, okay, today with technology, you can have a situation where in a chat window, the employee is typing in his or her problem in French, and the engineer in India is seeing it in English, and the engineer in India types it in English, and someone on the other side sees it in French, and this can happen on the fly. So using technology, a lot of that language barrier also is increasingly being broken down. So to that extent, I don't see Swiss companies' challenges being any different from some of the other European languages. Okay, so every country is worried about regulation. So is Switzerland, and the way an Indian GCC deals with regulatory challenges and compliances and safeguards and risk mitigation techniques for a German firm or a French firm or an American firm, the same way they have to think about it for a Swiss firm as well. And that's the reason. I mean, if you look at it today, of the 20 largest Swiss companies, I would say at least 80% of them, either are doing business in India or have some kind of a GCC in India, and that's across industries. You have banking giants like UBS, you have manufacturing firms like ABB, you have consumer product companies like Nestle, you have pharma companies like Novartis, insurance companies like Swiss Re and Zurich Financial Services, and the list goes on. We are again not at a stage where any Swiss company, if they decide to come to India, it's going to be an experiment. It's a proven business model. And there are enough learnings from these existing, pioneers that can be learned from. And therefore the risk today is much lower than what it would have been 10 years back. So and the time is very opportune. Technology is changing at a very fast pace. Organizations need to create new capabilities in artificial intelligence, in managing data, in creating the data fabric, having a data strategy. Organizations need to manage increasing threats of cybersecurity coming in. So there is a lot of pace of change which has to be kept up with. And the faster you come to a place like India, and India may not be the only place, but India is one of the best places to come and marry Swiss precision with Indian scale.
So you talked about a lot of imperatives, lot of problem statements that need to be solved, and obviously a lot of opportunities that this whole concept provides as well. So when an organization thinks of setting it up for the first time in India, obviously it needs a lot of support, a lot of enablement. So what are some of those business models available to these companies who are trying to start? So I know Wipro does a lot, but we are not alone in the marketplace. Our competition provides a lot of those services as well. So for a first time mover, what are those supports? What are the business models? What are the enablement which are available?
Sure. So there are, a few broad business models, and then there can be variants of each one of them. But broadly speaking, it starts with how much heavy lifting does an organization want to do themselves, and how much do they want to rely upon a partner for. So, can a Swiss company come in and set up a GCC entirely on their own with very little help from other folks? The answer is yes. But it will be a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of grunt work, a lot of running around different government organizations and state departments and central departments for approvals, etc. Of course, the Chamber of Commerce would be very helpful, but but still it would require a lot of grunt work. Now, if you say that you don't want to do the grunt work, then depending upon how much help you need, there are organizations available out there who can give you help with specific areas like setting up a legal entity, hiring the initial set of people, help you set up the physical facilities, help you list out all the government compliances needed and how to overcome them, make a checklist of all the regulatory compliances that you need on both sides. You have to comply with the Swiss regulatory environment and the Indian regulatory environment. So there are consulting organizations who can help you with that. And then, you can go to the other extreme and take up a model which we typically in the industry call build, operate, and transfer. So where you go to an organization, maybe like Wipro, and and say that, hey, can you build out this facility for me, operate it for a few years, and at the end of those few years, I will take over this smoothly running facility, right? So you can go to that other extreme of someone else doing all the heavy lifting for you and then giving it to you on a platter, right? So the more work you do, the cheaper it will be for you, but the longer it will take. If you want to go faster and you are willing to spend a bit more for that speed, then you would go to an established outfit in India who can help you do a build, operate, transfer. And then on this spectrum, you can peg yourself anywhere in between if you so choose.
While we talk about it, I also read some of the questions. Obviously, no conversations these days become successful without the mention of the AI. So, do you see Sandeep the role that the AI or all the more modern flavors such as agentic or Gen AI play a role in the setup of the GCC? What role, what problem can these technologies solve?
Yeah. So my belief is that any infusion of technology, whether it is AI or anything else, right? Uh, it shouldn't be looked at just for the GCC. True value of these new technologies or artificial intelligence comes when you reimagine entire processes end to end. The role which the GCC can play is that in adopting a new technology, there will be less resistance because there is no one making a statement that, oh, this is how we have been doing it for many years, right? And this is how we have been always doing it is the biggest stumbling block for driving change in any legacy organization. So the AI infusion has to be done in the process end to end, front to back. You have to reimagine the process for getting the most value out of it. But the GCC can play a role in being an enabler. It can play a role in designing and implementing this end to end. So in these kind of situations, the GCC should be tasked with implementing this not just in the center, but across the enterprise. And the other benefit of having a GCC, especially if you are either an organization with multiple business lines, or if you're an organization which has presence in multiple countries, is that the GCC can play a huge role in driving standardization across all these countries. So what I have found is organizations which have presence in multiple countries, usually they empower the countries to do things in a quote unquote local fashion, And the result is over a period of time, there is no one way of doing things for that organization. And if you don't have a standardized way of doing things, innovation becomes very difficult, because that means every innovation has to be implemented in multiple countries. So if you drive standardization through the GCC, then the cost and speed of innovation improves dramatically. Okay, and that's how I look at the correlation between GCC and AI or any new technology for that matter.
Sure. So thanks, Sandeep. Makes complete sense. I know there are more questions in the forum, so my call out once again is the email ID has been shared. Please feel free to send the questions, and they will be answered in coming days. And with that, before I hand over back to SICC and SBHI for their closing remarks, Sandeep, any other last comments you would like, or any word of advice to the organizations who are sort of trying to venture into this space?
Yeah, so advice is, don't wait for a perfect solution. Don't wait for complete consensus in the executive team. I've seen many organizations delay decision making because they are trying to bring the entire executive team on board. It's fine if only one of the execs is a risk taker and wants to be the early mover. So, you will get a sense of the success only by experiencing it yourself. Okay, and endless dictation, deliberations and discussions, and going through slide decks which consultants will come and present to you, that's beyond a point not helpful. It does play a role, but I think nothing like starting an experiment. So pick up one area, go to a service delivery partner, tell them to, hey, can you do this for us? Do a small mini build, operate, transfer kind of a thing. Get started with that. Okay. If you don't like it, you can continue in a conventional outsourcing mode. If you think that it is something which works for you, it can be scaled up and it can then be transferred and taken over by the, by the enterprise themselves, right? But please, get started, and you'll be surprised by the success that you will taste in the process.
Great, that's surely very inspiring, Sandeep. I'll hand over back to Florin and Philip for their closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Siddhish and Sandeep. And when we would not be virtual, I would now invite the audience to give a huge round of applause. That was really very interesting and enlightening. I have noted down 3 things out of many things which I learned a lot, and I see the virtual applause, which is very much deserved. What I heard is that GCCs, or your talk, Sandeep, is about commonalities, it's about collaboration, and in the end also about leveraging each other's strengths. So you said twice Swiss precision and India scale. I think that's exactly it. And these things, when you see the slide, the initial slide, we have presented with the bridge and the connected brains. That was TEPA. TEPA brings us all together. We are a network in India and Switzerland that support all Swiss companies that want to do business in the other market. So I invite you to use us as a network. We are here to help you. With Wipro, we have seen, you have proved that we have very capable experts from Swiss Business Hub. We are a platform organization. We connect companies to our experts, and we work very closely with the Swiss Indian Chamber of Commerce, which is our, I would even say, sister organization or partner organization, very closely. Thank you once again, Sandeep, Siddhish. Phil, over to you for the very last word.
Thank you, Florin. I mean, not much more to say. Thanks really, Sandeep, Siddhish, also for that interactive and engaging discussion, really focusing on the gist of GCCs. I did also see there are a few questions. I understand they can be mailed, and we'll address those that concern us, and these are very, very valid questions, but definitely GCC is one of potential solutions that companies should envisage. And we are really happy and proud to have such a great partner with you, Wipro. And I can only echo what Florin also said, sister, brother organization. We are Team Switzerland with the various sector association as well. Our goal is really that increased business, trade, investments is a success for both countries. It's a win-win. And again, we will toast to entry into force of TEPA in a week from now. You'll hear from us. We'll see each other, hopefully many of you. But thanks again to Wipro and to Sandeep Sidish in particular. Many thanks.
Bye, everyone, and use the email for questions.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your time. Let's connect here. Bye.